Alright, so for this video we're going to go through and wire and solder together our LDR. So we can see we've got our LDR there, which has a light dependent resistor. What we need to do with this one is we need to have our power coming in on one side, we need to have our ground and our signal in parallel over the other side, but our ground wants to go through that resistor. So we're going to set them up like that, and then we've got our heat shrink ready to go. So let's go through and let's start setting that up now. So what I'm going to do as my first step is we're going to grab the 5 volt, so the red wire, we're going to strip some off and we're going to attach it to the leg of this one and then add some heat shrink over the top. So first step we're going to do is grab some of that off, give them a twist, and then solder or tin the end of that. So heat from underneath, add our solder, happy days, and then repeat to both of the legs of our LDR. I'm just going to add some solder so we can tin both of those, clean that up, ready to go. Make sure if your tip is not shiny, you're just giving it a clean as we go through. So now that's ready to go. What I'm going to do is I want to do a little bit of a twist to make a little bit of a mechanical connection to this guy. So I'm going to, it doesn't matter which leg of the LDR we choose here because they're both, it's a non-polarized part. So I'm going to twist those together. If we've got a little bit over the top, I'm just going to trim that off afterwards. So he's there. I shouldn't need to add much heat to this, but that's there. Beautiful. So now I'm going to trim that leg and add some heat shrink over the top of that. Okay, so if I then measure out my heat shrink, that looks good. Bring him over the top. So you need to, sometimes you might have ends on the wire already, so you just need to keep an eye on how you need to set up your heat shrink, whether you need to slide it on before you solder. In this case, we don't. Okay, so that's first leg done, looking good. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to grab our wire for the signal, and we're going to attach it to the top leg of this and then attach it to there. So let's pull some of that so we can be a little bit more liberal with it this time. I want to have them facing the same way. I'm going to twist them and then wind those together. So from there I'm going to solder those together. Notice how I've got a little bit of overhang on there, so I'm going to heat shrink that together just to give it a bit more security. So add heat from underneath, add the solder, and that's going through nicely. Okay, so that bit looks good. What I'm going to do next is that leg is going to then get attached in here. So we're going to again give him a twist, get rid of that excess end, and then solder that together. Okay, so that looks good. I'll drop him in there, and then nice and carefully add from heat underneath, add a little bit of solder as he goes, equal heat across both of those parts, and that looks good. If I've got any excess solder on my tip, I'll just clean that off. But now if I have a look, I've got that looking good. So the next step is I need to add some heat shrink over the top, making sure I get down to just covering a little bit of that resistor. So I've got a little bit more security to that. So I'm going to slide that over the top. Now this is going to be tight over the resistor. We might find that we need to go and grab the 3mm instead of the 2mm, or we might just be able to work that over. Looks like I might need to look at the 3mm. So it looks like I'm going to go grab some 3mm very quickly. And let's try that again. So 3mm is a little bit fatter. If we're just doing single wires, 2mm is perfect. But 3mm, then we'll just neatly slide over that, and as you can see I've done much too much. So let's check that again. About there. So trim him down, slide him over. We want to do this before we start the next part of it as well. So that goes over, he's looking good, and put that in place. Make sure you always move the heat shrink away from behind it. And there we go. Alright, so then the last step is we're going to take that ground wire and attach down here. So again, this one I can pull a little bit more off, and then I'm going to twist that through and then solder that together. Okay, so that looks good. Add a little bit of heat underneath, then add the solder. There we go. And then I'm going to grab that piece of heat shrink that I was using before and just slide that over the top as our security, and to ensure we don't get any crossover of those signals and power. Okay, so now I've got mine ready to go. What I'll probably do with these ones is I'm just going to trim those so they're all the same length, and then take the ends off of those wires, ready for the next stage. Okay, there we go, LDR done.